So good morning to everyone. Welcome to our today's session, the webinar on the topic of application performance monitoring. We will spend together approximately an hour where our experts will guide you through this topic. Today, you will have two guides on the topic. The first one is Jiří Kurejko from Adastra. He will introduce you the Dynatrace solutions. And second one is Uwe Sendrowski from Servicetrace company. During the whole webinar, you can ask any questions. Please type them to this Q&A section you can find on the Zoom. And at the end of the webinar, we will answer all the questions you will be interested in. After the webinar, you will receive this recording and also the presentation. Both guys will show you about the solutions. So enjoy it. And at this moment, it's time to introduce Jiří, and it's his part. Go on.
Thank you, Eva, for the introduction. Good morning. Hello, everyone. My name is Jiří Kurejko. I work at Adastra, and I'm responsible for Dynatrace, for anything that goes with Dynatrace at Adastra. And I'm very happy to be joined today by our friends from Servicetrace, Uwe and Joe. And also all of you who are listening in. We prepared for you some introduction into Dynatrace and Servicetrace and how these two technologies can work together to improve your visibility and improve the application performance of your key business systems and how they deliver to your clients, to your customers, to your partners, and so on. So what we will cover today is a brief little introduction into Dynatrace for those of you who have never seen Dynatrace before. Then my colleague Uwe will jump into a Servicetrace session in the introduction on what Servicetrace is and how it works. We have a short demonstration, live demonstration also for you. And last but not least, we will look at how the integration and automation can help you and your company and your business. So without further ado, let me introduce the Dynatrace platform. As we all know, the world is changing. It's not just the current health crisis that we are all facing today, but it certainly helped digital transformation accelerate even further than it was accelerating before. So a multi-cloud dynamic environment is for many of us the new normal. The way we work now. As we all know, the bigger the applications, the faster it changes, the more challenges it brings. The complexity out there is exploding. New technologies are appearing all the time, and with that also comes the lack of resources, or the same or less resources to handle this more and more complex environment that's changing all the time. It's very dynamic. So there are basically what we see. There are two approaches from the kind of older, more legacy style point of view is the monitoring approach, what we would call monitoring. On the left, which where you take the best of the best tools for each job, and you use them for each and every area where you would like to have some visibility. The kind of new kid on the block, or what we would call the new approach, is what we keep hearing recently all the time. Observability. So you take metrics, logs, traces, put it all together and get some value out of it, and get as much visibility out of it as you possibly can. We see some failures with these approaches. They require a lot of manual effort. There could be a lot of noise. They're not correlating. They're not the AI. You have to bolt it on, and you have sometimes no idea what's the business impact. So you see a lot of red lights, but you don't actually know what's wrong, what to fix, and how to get back to normal. So you create silos, you create some noise, and no solution. So we believe there is a new approach needed. The new approach is what we call the Dynatrace platform, the software intelligence platform. It's built on automation. It's built with dependencies in mind. Observability also comes into play, but it has built-in AI that's ready to work with the data that it has, and with which we can extend the platform. So the AI is at the core of the platform. It's not something that's added on as an afterthought, and completely built in. So as a new approach to monitoring, we believe it's a good idea to go beyond dashboards, and to use the AI to actually alert about problems and how to solve those problems in real time, rather than look at dashboards and look at thousands of metrics, and try and do that yourself. In some of these complex and dynamic environments, it's actually no longer possible for humans to do it themselves with the thousands and millions of dependencies between containers and applications. It's sometimes even not even possible to actually do it manually, and you have to leave that work to algorithms and AI. So that's the core of the platform. For running the platform, for working with it, as we all, I think, understand, automation is key, and without automation, we wouldn't be able to, for example, to instrument almost 20,000 servers in 3.5 hours. So that's the kind of, that tells you the kind of scale of applications and companies that we work with. But at the same time, it also tells you the speed with which we can deploy this solution. And also, last but not least, it also tells you that we can, with automation, we can enable you to work on very large environments with a crew of a few people. So, for example, one of the customers has more than 90,000 servers under monitoring and does it with a 6-person team. So that's not possible without large-scale automation, and that's what we are with Dynatrace all about. At the same time, you know, it's of course automation is key and AI, but your business counterparts or your business owners, they're also very savvy. They're also very interested in what's going on in the applications. They don't necessarily care about deep dive, you know, down to the Docker containers. They're more interested in the user experience, in how the users are finding the application, and what they see and what they can do. So we offer this perspective as well, this business view and view from the end user. That's something also that my colleague later will talk about in more detail, how we can work together here with Servicetrace. So what we can bring to your business these are some KPIs that we can bring. For example, we can have with Dynatrace after we deploy, we can have an impact on cart value, on conversions, on customer churn. These are all values that go hand in hand with great or not so great user experience. On the operations side of things, we can help with resolving support tickets, mean time to resolve, getting back to operations, getting back to the normal state of things. So these are some of the KPIs that we help improve at some of the customers, and we can probably think of many more that have helped. So maybe you might think that changing is hard and that it's a big project to change your monitoring, to change your tooling. Yes, of course it can be, but we have shown time and again that thanks to the automation and AI, we almost always require much less time than would be anticipated and then would be assumed. So for a major customer, we delivered a project where there were 90 plus critical applications that were migrated in less than 1 month. That's it's an incredible speed for an implementation project, and that's all thanks to the automation and the AI that we have in the background. So what are some of the benefits that the Dynatrace that can bring to your company and to the way you're running your business and your IT? We can bring huge operational savings by resolving things faster, by getting back to normal faster, even automating the way operations is running. We can save a lot of time and effort on the development side of things by catching things before they come into production, catching problems sooner, and also we can boost your business with higher cart value, and user productivity, more KPIs being fulfilled, or better KPIs, improved KPIs. So these are some of the things that also Forrester is recognizing as benefits that are brought by an APM deployment and by Dynatrace. If you are completely new to Dynatrace and you would like to try it, there's nothing easier than going to dynatrace.com/trial, where you can download a free trial and you can be amazed in 5 minutes or less. And you can see it for yourself in your own environment, at your own pace and at your own time. So that's a very quick introduction into Dynatrace. Let me now hand over to my friend Uwe over in Germany, who will go into more detail on the Servicetrace offering and how that ties into the Dynatrace side of things. So Uwe, all yours. You are muted, I think.
Thanks a lot, Thierry.
No problem.
I hope you can see my screen. Is that okay? The shift over?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So also welcome from my side. I'm Uwe Sandrowski. I work with now close to be 7 years with Servicetrace, and it was really a very interesting journey. Now in these days, I work. You can consider me by my position a little bit like a COO of the CEO. And today I want to give you a little bit of an insight how Servicetrace has developed and what we do and how we do this. So what we do is we do now since 17 years robotic executions. And there are different flavors of it, but how to handle a robot and make it safe and have a good execution, that is something we bring with our 70 years experience into the game. The question at the end is then how you're going to use it. So what is the use case in this whole story? And let me show you this picture because I wanted to talk a little bit about successes, and you may find yourself in some of these areas where it sounds interesting to be part of that solution. So the combination between Dynatrace and Servicetrace is a real success story with a number of customers you see here on this slide deck. So starting with Zurich Insurances, Groupe Mutuelle, we have an American large company customer, meanwhile, Amazon, and this is the largest health radiation therapy manufacturer in California, and to get connected to a hospital information system. So all of these companies, and I wanted to show you that on another aspect, they are working and relying on Servicetrace, and we substituted in nearly all of the cases the former and now end-of-life ESM system. So that started with our largest installation from the Federal Agency of Labor in Germany. They have about 300 bots, and the fact that they called us in the last 3 years exactly 2 times, asking us to install the new version for it, and nothing else, shows you the I think the happy situation of the customer, which they decided to extend the whole installation for another 2 years and adding another 60 bots to it. So we rely as a relatively small company on huge accounts, very large accounts. And the only thing what we can bring into the game here is our product excellence. And that is something we are really proud about. Now, let me bring you one aspect to that. Robotic execution. Servicetrace is not a monitoring tool. Servicetrace is a fully fledged robotic execution system. Think on that level. And you have seen already some aspects about self-healing and all of that and automation. A robot can do everything. A robot can do all 5 minutes the same stuff. And you got a monitoring approach, and you see here that some of the situations are different than to other scenarios. So mostly your workflows are relatively linear, I wanted to say, you don't change it that often. When it comes to automation, you may change things earlier, quicker, and maybe in the business approach, an RPA approach, you've got a very wide range of decisions. And so the workflows will be very complex. However, how to handle all of that, that is a story I want to guide you today through. So we all know what it means. You need really to prove that your systems are up. Otherwise, it is a big mess of and loss of money and customers. And what we have seen is you will get a lot of information through the whole chain. That is easy to make, and Dynatrace is one of the important players. However, you may face that everything is in green and the users are still unhappy. How to handle that and how to get information about this. This situation is only possible to solve with a synthetic monitor, because if a user is doing nothing and we have a real user monitoring, you don't get any data, but you wanted to act predictively. So only with synthetic monitoring, you have the chance to get a 24/7 surveillance of your entire systems, and you can ensure everything is okay when the work begins in the morning. And that gives you the ability to have a really bulletproof service level report. Now, we have to face one thing, and that is an original statement from Ørsted, which is the largest wind energy provider in the world. It's a Danish company. And they said, we were searching for 2 years for a real good synthetic monitoring application. We didn't find one. And within 2 weeks, 2 of our partners approached them and said, we have the solution. And both said it's Servicetrace. So all of these players, they stopped synthetic monitoring, and you can go what you want. ESM is the example of the Dynatrace world. I think AppDynamics never had a real one. BMC stopped TMARS, CA stopped Nimsoft, HP stopped BAC, IBM Tivoli is an old story. So you can go where you want. Nobody has that anymore. So you don't have a chance really to get a clear 24/7 monitoring approach. And that is where we fill the gap. And all of a sudden, I have to say, 3 years ago, Dynatrace wasn't really much of a friend of us. Today, we are friends. And that is the reason why we really complement to each other. Now, let me face one thing. If we do synthetics, then I have a very strong statement. For me, it is absolutely irrelevant what application you have. We handle everything. You can explain me a lot of special things you have. It is irrelevant. If you can imagine that I could an infrared live screen of a combat helicopter and read out data and react on other things, then you know what we can do with Servicetrace. So no exceptions. The one thing is bring it on a PC screen. This is the only thing you need to do. From that moment on, we do everything. And we decided if we want to do that, then one thing became clear. We need to go through a GUI. Now we do it, we use the GUI, but not really the GUI. And I will explain a little bit later about that. What we implemented is a very specific technology, and this is patented, to find patterns and images on a screen that fast that we can find them in a running HD movie. We combine them with logical functions, and we use a vectorization technology which helps us to bring to create a very stable recognition that means better 98, 99% of stability. And we don't change your system. It stays as it was. We don't modify anything in your existing infrastructure. So that statement, I think, tells everything. As long as you can click it, you can process it with Servicetrace. And this is one of the largest service provider in Central Europe mentioned. How this looks like. Now, imagine these white elements are your network. And we add things to that. So we have a small server. It's really not a big thing. And we can place our bots in the infrastructure of your platform. That can be either a dedicated platform or, and this is a very specific thing, and I will elaborate on that, it can be part of an already installed Windows appliance, maybe a user appliance. So they communicate only from the bot to the server. There is no way that the server calls a bot. This means we have a full agent-based system. They run independently, and we have a secured communication where only the bot calls the server for activities, and he can do this with any proxies and encryption mode you like to have. That means we can do and build any cloud infrastructure and deliver a robot as a service. And as you could see here, you can move licenses. That means you can install our bot software on each and every platform in your environment, and you just activate the license you require. And the server is running in a full multi-tenancy environment, which is really a cool thing for service providers. They can grant different customers access to their own system and they modify themselves. And we integrate into other larger systems. And this is the core story of today. Now, let me explain a little bit on our bot. Our bot is a very specific thing, and we have here also another patent. There are some limits, and whenever you think about synthetic monitoring, you have a limit nobody on this world can surpass, and that is time. If you want to have every 5 minutes a result, then the limit is the 5 minutes. You cannot do a longer execution than your interval is. So that is a clear limit, and then you need to add another session, which is really not a good thing. The other thing is, it is a very cumbersome solution to have an execution on an open desktop, because you always make sure that the environmental parameters are exactly in that size, in that frame, as you predefined your workflow. And that makes sometimes a lot of difficulties, because sometimes workflows work in different scenarios. Security is a huge issue. And according to Gartner, we deliver the highest secure robotic execution system on this world. If you work within an open desktop, it would be terrible. And we delivered and we created a solution where nobody has access to the system. And the last but not least, it would be a cool idea if a robot is going down, that there is an automatic start for having the chance to you switch on a system again, and it will start automatically the work it was supposed to do. And as we have an agent-based system, you can even disconnect the server from the agents. These agents will continue to work until the disk is full. And we made a test compared to those who may have experience with Dynatrace. We made a test at the Federal Agency of Labor. They was exactly looking for that. They disconnected 2 bots. Now they disconnected all of the 10 bots in the test phase for 2 days from the main server, and then looked after 2 days, how long did the resynchronization took? And it took exactly 15 minutes, and everything was sync again. Now, how is our secure session working? So imagine first you have a system, a bot system, and you want, this is a Windows appliance, and you like to install it to our server. So you install a Windows service. The Windows service is 300 megabytes. And in that moment, you enable a PC to be part of the system. And the only time you touch the robot directly is during installation, unless you do it automatically. And you tell the bot 2 things. Where is your server? And how do you like to communicate? As soon as this piece has a connection to the server, you never touch the bot again. You can place it, and we have customers that place it on every PC in their environment. So whenever they like, they activate the bot on a remote system, and they can ever do what they want. If you now have a session, so a workflow which should be executed, the system starts in the background a so-called secure session. You don't need extra software for that. That's all integrated. That means the foreground user can continue to work, and you have your background session where the robot executes your standard workflows in order to provide your measurement data. Now, all of that is okay and nice, but now comes the really cool thing. Just by granting more licenses, you can run many of them in parallel on the same system. The limit is your CPU power, your RAM, your network throughput. You can run them inaccessible, invisible, and server controlled means we have an automatic load balancing feature included. And they are completely independent from each other. And independent also in terms of screen resolutions, color depths, login names, domains. And that is a very important information, because now you can say you define the environmental parameters of all of these elements in the workflow, not in the system. And that means you can deploy a workflow running in HD, user A, domain Z in full color. And you run another session, the same time, user B, domain Y, in VGA or super VGA, 16 colors. So it's completely irrelevant. The target system needs to be able to run the resolution you have chosen, but that's it. And face it, we have a Windows 10 system. And if you have local admin rights, to a Windows 10 session and you have criminal energy, you would be able to enter such a session for only 1 second. After this 1 second, the session collapses. You cannot take advantage of any credential you have provisioned, and the system will send a security breach alert to the central server, and then you can take your actions. So in essence, you have one PC, one operating system, one app, and you can run many robotic instances on the same system, and you don't need an extra VMware or something like that. So you can build bot farms, if you will, or you can run many instances on a remote session somewhere to the same time. I will just briefly went over that. That is an experience from, because we have a very specific technology in order to provide a secure logon feature. So we don't work here with keystrokes and something like that. This was a challenge of the largest car manufacturer in the world, the German one. So they asked us not to work with SAP and Office standard applications, but also with CATIA. CATIA, for those who don't know what it is, this is a AutoCAD for the super professionals. It's a 3D modeling software. You build cars with that. So and they asked us to take in a Citrix session a 3D object, load this, then turn it for 90 degrees, and then measure the turnaround time. This was not a problem. This is easy. Our graphical engine is easy to handle that. The real challenge was the workflow designers were sitting in India and they were staffed by an external company. Now, my rhetoric question would be, do you think that Daimler-Benz would grant an external company sitting in India the live credentials of their core development system for new cars in CATIA? No, of course not. So how can we solve this? So these designers work in an own test environment, and whenever they need to log on to a system, they use our concept of encrypted server-based variables. That means they don't use keystrokes, they predefine the keystrokes in a variable set, and they run it here on a test system, and when they're ready to go, they upload this to the central server in the production. And what then happened is the variables will be empty. You need to have management attention to enter the variable associated with the workflow, and then it will be sent in a dual layer encryption mode to the target systems. It stands here in an encrypted mode in the repository, and it will be executed and decrypted only during the execution of that secure session. This way, we decouple workflow designers from production data. Now, how to build a workflow is a funny thing. So first, yeah, we added some things about enable a stable robotic execution in a moment when you may have planned pop-ups and so forth. So we have daemons who control the screen and react on some behaviors which you did not foresee. We have a very easy to design tool, which is a no-code solution, but it is not a plain recording. And that is a very important asset. And right now we face about 12 billion executions per year. So I think, yes, we know what it means to build a stable robotic execution. Now, the design studio combines two of the best worlds. And you will see this in a short demo very briefly. But recording, and you have a synthetic recording in the Dynatrace system when you have a web recording, it's not very good because you create a monolithic block, you cannot edit, you cannot tune, you cannot parameterize, you cannot take care about a special behavior of an application, you cannot reuse it, you don't have a versioning, and most important, you cannot take any decisions. So if something is different, you cannot say, if something happens, then do something else. And that is a very important factor. and nobody wants to code again. That's bad. So we have a very specific system in order to find errors and correct them. So to plan, handle planned and unplanned changes, you just have an analytical package, and if you have the authorization, you just take it, drop it on your workflow, and it will open automatically where the error is and shows you how the screen looks like. So perfect. And you have no chance to delete a workflow. It is a full versioning system included. You have an auto documentation, which is really cool because it saves you a lot of time. And you have an audit mode where, because of, we can tell you every bot execution in what version, in what time, with what results. So it's a full auditable system. So in essence, we build workflows that defines the what. You connect them together to schedules, the when and the how. And you bring this to a central server, and then you deploy this to the bots, and the bots typically are the where. And a minimum installation typically consists out of at least 3 bots. One is the outgoing part of the data center or within the data center, and maybe 2 at the endpoints of a network. And then we have our own output modules like dashboards, alerts, reports. And we can pump all of this data as well into other platforms. So that is the integration idea, what we have. And I will now move into the integration, which is a new product we launched, which is called Gateway One. So Gateway One is a kind of a core communication engine, which is multilateral and multi-directional. We don't want to build too much at the first moment. So we have a system where we pump our data into other systems, and Dynatrace is one of the core systems we have today, or in an influx database. However, if you want to add a service now, and you want that you pump first everything into Dynatrace, have your complete data set now in the Dynatrace ecosystem, Dynatrace can be sent also data directly into a ServiceNow world. That's also possible. So we have a bidirectional solution in this case. And our test automation suite is also bidirectionally connected to Jira. So the business background is we define now a real end user monitoring data set, and the data set becomes part of the Dynatrace ecosystem. The problem, as I said earlier, if you have a real user monitoring, no active users, no data. And end user experience, who else can really measure that? So we know that Dynatrace has one synthetic monitoring possibility for web. If you have a very simple web application and your SLA is really not depending on it, that you have to pay maybe penalties, then it's absolutely okay. It's easy to use. It's very easy to use, but there are a number of buts. First, if you have a web application with Java and iframes, it doesn't work. And then it comes to the other complete data set. As soon as you have a combination with other applications, then it will not work. As soon as you want to make decisions, so maybe a web page changed a bit and you want to have an either or if then else, it doesn't work. So you can only do these elements with Servicetrace, and believe me, if then else is often being used more often than you think. So we fill the gap, and we want to be part of the Dynatrace database and analytic engine. And that means you don't need our output modules. Some like our alerting. This is really very big. And they continue to use this and pump alerting data into other hubs. But the most interesting thing is what you heard today is the self-healing aspect. And the self-healing aspect is a very interesting one. So the picture looks like, think as an example, you have a Citrix environment and you have your Dynatrace environment, and you want to monitor everything from Dynatrace. And this is your main information hub. You have your AI engineer. You'd like to have everything in this ecosystem. So we place our bots in that ecosystem. We monitor all of the synthetics you need to catch data, and we pump the whole thing into the Dynatrace environment. Surprise, surprise, the Citrix monitoring will appear here and is now part of that story. However, you can do by far more. So there is a closed loop aspect. Now think you have an AI engine, and the AI engine defines, oh, I know why that error happens. And you can call another bot from Servicetrace and say, if that happens, then please execute a self-healing runbook. And all of a sudden, we are in a closed loop. So always imagine, we don't have a tool. Our robots can do whatever you like to define as a human. When you have the rule, the robot can be part of that rule. And one of the first presentations I have seen when that picture has been shown to an end user, our partner in Germany used the terms, as you can see, you see nothing. Because we are fully part of the Dynatrace ecosystem. So the first line is the web browser robot from Dynatrace. And you see here below, there are the Servicetrace bots, and they become a full integral part of the Dynatrace solution. And with all the drill downs, with all the measurement steps, you can see here, you have everything in your hands to the very detail, like in the Dynatrace system. So we complement the Dynatrace solution with a full synthetic robotic execution and a self-healing functionality as well. So that's so far, and I promised you to show you something live, and I will move now to the live system. And the live system is being built in two ways. I have two virtual engines. I have our Windows server, so this is where workflow is, and I show the workflow only in the design mode, because that is the only point in time where I can show you a real life execution. And I have a very old PC. It's my private PC. It's a Windows 7, and I have a very old application on it. Sometimes in my private life, I like to repair classic and older cars. And in this case, I can have a look here. You see the brand. I have here a very old application, which is called Technical Information System, which gives you how to repair brakes, for example. And that is written in Delphi. So I use this application, and I will call now this Windows PC in an RDP session from my server. So that reflects a little bit a Citrix scenario. So if I would start, and don't be shocked, there will be an error at the beginning, and this is by purpose. What I will do, and I show you also the automation part of it, I have here the most simple table you can build. It's a CSV file, and you have two models, two serial numbers, and I wanted to place how to repair the brakes in two files. That's it. So that is my table, and we go through a table. Now, when I start this program, I start here the remote desktop session. I need to log on, and I told you earlier, we need to have server-based variables, and you see here are my variables. Yeah, and the value is just the open value. If I bring this then to the central server, those variable values will be empty. You need to re-enter them. But here for the testing and for the building, this is okay. But it shows you we don't use real keystrokes. We use keystrokes which are done in a normal, hidden and secured way. And then what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through a loop and find for two models the elements. And this is for monitoring interesting because sometimes you wanted to work with variable data, not always the same data, to prevent database caching. And the table is very simple because you just assign this table and the system automatically provides you with the right set of variable definitions and content. And then you use it. So the whole workflow is not very big, is the whole thing, that's it. And now we just start. And when we do this and we design something like this, think of you explaining it to your grandma. And we have a very big toolbox with all necessary elements included. And let's run and see what happens now. So I start my execution, and he tries to connect to a server, to a system. And the problem is it will not connect because I reinstalled my virtual machine, and the virtual machine now has got a new IP address. So I know this meanwhile, why the IP address has been changed. This was, oops. So I cannot start simply because my run program has a wrong IP address. It is 1.3. So if I use that one, then it would work. So let's run and give this again a try. And this is again an error, because now what happened is when you log in the first time, it wanted to see the admin name and not just the password. So you see here, oh, something happened and it could not work correctly because this was my password. And I should have typed in here now the user. So I need to change the whole thing, because sometimes the picture can look like this. Sometimes the next time it will look differently. So how to handle that? And you see here, I prepared and changed something. I built an if then else clause in the whole scenario. If my search pattern gives me the information of there is a benutzer name, so username should be entered, then do this keystroke. The keystroke is just the server-based variable, means the password, user, and the password. In this case, it's just the password. Okay. One important thing I wanted to add is the mouse clicks. Mouse clicks, and you may change, the screen may change, is something very important, and I show you this here only very quickly, is when you define a mouse click, it is relative to the image you have found before. Exactly this thing. You see, identification, find coordinate. That is something we found before, and when you move now your element over the screen, the mouse will just follow. That makes the execution extremely stable. So now let's do the modified and better. I should first stop this here. And now it logs on. And it will now run through the whole thing. It should, but it was open. The RDP session was open. Sorry for that. Okay. Let's give this another try, and then it will work. And you will see now that the RDP session now is differently. Now I need just to type in the password. And this is exactly what we did. So the modification works. And it fails. It didn't fail before I started. What happened? Now I'm irritated. Let me. This is locked off. I need to log off here. So I don't know what I modified here, but what I will do is I will start this one with the correct IP address. It should run now. Okay. Now it runs through the loop. So this is the first time. So it looks to the system, and now it works through this very old application and looks for the breaks. Now, if something takes longer, that doesn't really harm the whole thing. So if it will wait until your predefined timeout will reach the whole thing. And now it saves the first file on the desktop, and now it looks for the second serial number, looks again for the breaks, and now it looks for a different car. And you see sometimes, yeah, the system may behave, it takes longer or it is faster. It is always waiting until the defined breakpoint will be reached. So this is now the saving for the last time. And now it will end the whole thing and stop the session. And then you can get your script run results. These data now will be transmitted into your system. Now, the question is, how can I build now measurement points? The measurement point creation is a very simple thing. So you just take your stopwatch, you just include this here in a run program, let's say, and you say, I want to have the whole set here in that scenario. So you measure the whole set of executions or a single set, and that's it, how you build measurement points. So we were just scratching on the surface how to build workflows. Honestly, I found one real problem with this product. It will make you addicted. So I want to end here and open the Q&A session for the remaining 7 minutes.
Thank you very much, Uwe. That was impressive. And I especially like the security aspect of not just an automation solution, but it's also very secure and ties beautifully into what we at Dynatrace are also about. So the closed loop, finding the problem and fixing it in a self-healing situation is it's the pinnacle of automation. That's how it should work, right?
Yeah, becoming close to a system automation idea. Yeah, it's not just monitoring. We are often being asked, yeah, if I have a monitoring solution, how can I now find the root cause of an error? My standard answer is, how would you do this in your normal day? Yeah, I would click here, check there, and said you have a robot. And we have a number of customers since years. They said, yes, we have 20 robots, but one robot is my 19 are in monitoring and one is my personal slave. So they use these things already. Yeah, and it is a very big US company. And we talked about system automation and RPA ideas. And he stopped me and said, Uwe, I'm doing this since 10 years now. So yeah. Easy.
So we've had 2 questions in the meantime. So let me come back to them. The first one was on iOS and Android applications. I think it was for you, Uwe. I think you'll be more than happy to answer. So you mentioned that everything that runs on a PC, you can do it. But what about iOS and Android? Do you use some emulator or something like this?
I used this in a Dynatrace event. I started not only some, it was an idea. I wanted to invite people to my booth, and I realized I could do this with my app, but not with the web application. So I asked my colleague, download the Android app, emulator, download the Dynatrace app, and invite all people you can find on a certain aspect to my booth. This took exactly 2 hours. iOS is a bit tricky. iOS means it is too much control by Apple, but we have a solution for that if this is really needed. However, for real mobile devices, to have a monitoring is a very tricky thing, because the data you will get in a real, I would say, on a real device, you will get mobile latencies which may not really reflect what a user will see always. And that is not a reliable data for an SLA agreement. So we have been asked quite a lot of time and often for that aspect. In reality, nobody really required that. An emulation is okay. We can have a fixed date. You put an emulator there and you do it. And if you want to have a certain application being checked, you can do it with Android very easily. But we have a solution for iOS if it is necessary, and we use a server and a service where you could see the iOS devices, and there will be handled with cameras and interactions to that. It's possible to do that, but I don't think it's worth it in a real mobile device.
Very cool. Very cool. One more question that appeared in the chat as I was following your presentation. There was a question on the connection between Dynatrace and Servicetrace. So how does the connection work? What metrics we capture and so on. So I'll cover the Dynatrace part, and I'll let you handle the Servicetrace part. But I think the way Dynatrace handles all connections with other systems is through an API, through a REST API. So we offer a lot of data that we can provide from Dynatrace, but through this API we can also gather data from other systems, and we can capture events, metrics, all sorts of things. And the beautiful thing about Servicetrace is that the connection is already there. It's already prepared. And as you could see in some of the slides, we can gather metrics and data from Servicetrace and display that right in Dynatrace. So all the events, all the executions of the workflows, we can gather a lot of data that we can display right in the Dynatrace workflow.
Right, from our side, it's a prepared product. We have a fixed, I would say not data set, but a fixed data, kind of data we transmit. Within Servicetrace, typically you collect all of the measurement points, and they have names, and you have response times according to a certain time. And that is an information we pump over. We have additional information called checkpoints. This is just a digital point where you reach a certain element that cannot be reflected into Dynatrace. Dynatrace don't have a logic for that. And we have also the capability to collect all our analytic packages. The analytic packages cannot be transmitted into Dynatrace because Dynatrace do not allow that in the moment. But if they would allow, we can also pump our analytic packages into this system. However, we have a very strict security rule on that. You can only access it if you have the authorization of it, because a screenshot may contain serious data which should not be visible to a system admin. And the last thing is, we have been asked how, because our alert system is really cool, can we pump our alerts into Dynatrace? This is a plan we think about to extend the system.
I think that's common for both of us, that we both work on extending and automating also the connection to other systems, and the API first is a mantra, I think, for both. So there was another question that I noticed on the API management and automation tooling, and if it's already in place, if we can leverage these. And I would say absolutely you can.
Hey, Marine, I just see it's from you. Good
there
to
you
hear you.
go.
Good to see you. Yeah, yeah, we're working with Marine right now. Yeah, that's a cool.
So I would say hello, Marine, as well from me, and I would say absolutely you can leverage these. That's you know, we can use the API. We can develop something that leverages your existing automation, connects to your automation scripts or to your automation tooling, and calls that from Dynatrace. But I would probably let Uwe answer on how you can leverage the robot to use existing automation.
I mean, at the end, whatever you would do as a logic consequence, you can trigger another bot and do something, whatever you have predefined. You can use anything what you would use as a human, and that's the limit. Yeah. Apart from, you can use interfaces directly to pump with RESTful, which typically you don't use as a human. We need to look a little bit deeper into that, because that question is something I feel not very safe to answer precisely. So Marine and the whole audience, I will take this question and we will discuss it, and then I will leave it and answer this for all of them in a later phase.
Okay.
Another question is about Servicetrace robot version. This update is in live without any shutdown or creation new robot. Malik, I don't understand really this question.
Could probably precise your question, because it's not easy to understand.
I mean, you want to ask whether we can update a bot without shutdown of a system. Yeah. The versioning of the bots, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In the moment, it is the way that as the last version, this version is still the version where you have to download the bot software, and you need to update the bot on your own. The version which will come on in fall 21 has the technology included what we have already in RPA, and that means you have an automatic bot update button, and you click on it, and it will take the new version and display it like the workflow updates. I mean, the problem also is if you have a new workflow. The workflow update is very simple as of today. So if, let's say, you have your bots installed and you have a new version of a workflow, or you have a corrected one, what I did, I need to correct something, you just press two buttons, upload, redeploy. And then all of them all of the bots got the new versions or the selected one. But the bot software itself, that will come in fall, that we have an automatic bot update.
And I guess you can build a bot that updates your other bots. So it's
you can use that technology as well if you want.
It's another closed loop.
Yeah. All of the boring stuff.
That's right. So
just want to intervene, as we are a little overdue already. I wonder whether we could answer this last question. Jiri, I think you haven't posted yet. Attendee asks whether it is possible to transfer events or problems that are defined in Servicetrace to the Dynatrace system.
Events?
I think that depends on the Servicetrace API, but if that, I understand that's also included in the package, and through Gateway 1, we should be able to get these. But
the question is, what events do you talking about? I mean, an event, you mean an alert event? That can be an event, and that is planned to be. An alerting integration is what we're discussing right now, but it is not in the actual version. What we today transmit is a measurement point, the time of the measurement point, and the result of the measurement point.
Yes, thanks.
Good. I think no questions popping up. We are overdue since 6 minutes, 7.
I see no more questions at the moment, but if there are any questions later from attendees, then please let us know through, we will share contacts, and we are happy to take them offline and then answer them in a one-to-one session, of course. So I would like to thank all of you for attending, for your attention, and best regards from Dynatrace and from Adastra.
And from Servicetrace to you all.
Bye-bye. Have a nice day.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.